starts. But we have some interesting things on hand. Stephanie White appears to be kind of getting her way. The Indiana Fever have won the last 2 games without Caitlin Clark. Nobody seems to care that they won without Kelsey Plum playing, without Asia Wilson playing. The word around town is that Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever are better without Caitlin Clark.
Stephanie White and the Fever are better without Caitlin Clark. That's the actual sentence going around Fever Twitter tonight, and in a couple of hours, we're going to find out if anyone still believes it.
Indiana Fever set the take on the lifeless LA Sparks right now. No Kelsey Plum, no Cameron Brink. This is a team that the Indiana Fever absolutely should put hands and feet on. This should be a beatdown. You beat them down before, you should beat.
Look at who's actually standing across from Indiana tonight. Crypto.com Arena, 10 o'clock Eastern. And the Sparks are walking in without Kelsey Plum, who's been out for weeks with a leg injury, and without Cameron Brink, who's still week to week on a bad ankle. Sportsbooks have Indiana as roughly a 70% favorite on the road, a 6.5-point spread, which in basketball terms means the Fever are supposed to win this comfortably. If Stephanie White wants a clean experiment for her supposed "we don't need Caitlin" theory, a short-handed Sparks team missing 2 rotation regulars isn't exactly a fair test.
Beat them down again. This is not a good team. I don't know how Nneka Ogwumike even made the All-Star team. Whatever, must be a part of her WNBA president duties to where she has to be a part of the All-Star team, because with 8 wins, there's a bunch of players I think should have made the All-Star team over her.
While Indiana gets ready for LA, the league just handed Nneka Ogwumike her 11th career All-Star selection, tying her with Diana Taurasi for second all-time behind only Sue Bird, 16 and 1 points a game this season. Under 9 rebounds, the Sparks sitting right around 500. A franchise legacy pick from the coaches, or the best evaluation available. Depends who you ask. Several analysts this week made the case that Toronto's Brittany Sykes, putting up a career high just past 20 points a game, got left off a stacked ballot instead. For what it's worth, Indiana has its own stake in that conversation, tied with Atlanta and Minnesota for the most All-Stars of any team this year, 3 apiece, heading to Chicago on July 25th. Ogwumike's going either way. But here's what should actually worry you if you're a Fever fan tonight, and it has nothing to do with the Sparks' front line. It's what Stephanie White said in her own words after Tuesday's practice, and we're getting to that before this video is over.
Stephanie White's on a mission, guys. Stephanie White is out to prove that she does not need to play Caitlin Clark's way for this team to win. She's on a mission to prove that this is her squad, not Caitlin Clark's squad. This is the Stephanie White, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, South Carolina-esque Indiana.
So where does "Stephanie White doesn't need Caitlin Clark" actually come from? It's not a quote from White herself. Nobody's put her name directly on that sentence. It's the read a lot of Fever commentary has taken since Indiana won its last 2 games without its franchise point guard, 84-68 over Las Vegas on Sunday, 111-87 over these same Sparks back on June 27th. Kelsey Mitchell dropped 26 in that first Sparks meeting and 27 against the Aces. Aaliyah Boston added 7 rebounds in that first game, then 18 points and 10 boards in the second. And this isn't even the first time this has happened under White. Last season, in her first year back with this franchise, Clark played only 13 games because of groin and ankle issues and missed the entire playoffs. And White still led this roster to a first-round upset of the 3-seed Atlanta Dream before finally losing in 5 games to Las Vegas in the semifinals. So there's an actual track record of this team performing without Clark, not just a 2-game sample from the last week. Whether that track record means what Fever Twitter wants it to mean, that White has some kind of preference here, is a completely different question.
Could come to a head. Could you imagine, and I don't see this happening, but could you imagine if the Indiana Fever were to lose to the LA Sparks, the conversations and the talks that will be being had? Do you know the type of talks that will be being had? They're already being had right now. Could you only imagine? We don't have time for that. For the Indiana Fever to secure victory, this thing is simple, man.
Which brings up the uncomfortable hypothetical nobody in Indianapolis wants to say out loud. Picture Indiana, a heavy road favorite, actually dropping this one to an 8 and 11 Sparks team playing without 2 rotation regulars. That loss doesn't just cost the Fever in the standings, 6th place, 12 and 8, trying to hold ground in a crowded playoff picture. It hands the "this team is better without Clark" crowd their only real piece of evidence, and it undercuts the exact chemistry Indiana is trying to rebuild before the postseason. So if you're Stephanie White, the actual mission tonight isn't proving a point. It's simpler than that. Feed whoever's healthiest at the point of attack, push the pace, and don't let this get sloppy against a team that's already down 2 starters.
That being the Sparks, they don't have the talent, they don't have the depth, they don't have anything to get up and down, possession by possession, and survive the hurricane, the storm that is Caitlin Clark when she gets it going on the offensive end. They don't have anything that they can do with Caitlin Clark. Put the ball in her hands, let her rock and roll, and that'll make the game easy for Kelsey Mitchell. That'll make the game easy for Aaliyah Boston. That'll make the game easy for...
Start with the math. The last time these 2 teams played, Indiana won by 24, 111-87, and that was with Plum already out for LA. Take Cameron Brink away on top of that, and the Sparks are down to Anuka Ogamaike, Ariel Atkins, Ray Burrell, and Dearica Hamby, carrying almost the entire offensive and defensive load. That's a shortened rotation, trying to guard a Fever team that shot 55% from the field and 53% from 3 in that first meeting. If Indiana plays fast and gets early offense before LA, his defense sets, this turns into the kind of night where the margin balloons by the 3rd quarter. The version of this game that's actually interesting isn't whether the Fever win. It's whether Indiana can put this away early enough that Stephanie White can rest her rotation heading into a back-to-back against Phoenix on Thursday.
Ball, that's the second thing. Pushing the ball, Stephanie White staying out of the way. Pardon me. Stephanie White, you got to stay out of the way. You got to let the guards, let Caitlin Clark do her thing. And hopefully we can get that Caitlin Clark.
There's a version of tonight where Stephanie White's actual job has nothing to do with proving a point and everything to do with getting out of the way. Whoever's directing the offense at the 1, the read from Indiana's staff all week has been about rhythm, not control. Rebuilding whatever chemistry got interrupted by 2 weeks of a back that wouldn't cooperate. That's not the language of a coach trying to prove her team doesn't need its best player back. It's the language of a coach trying to get her best player back into rhythm as fast and as safely as possible. Keep that in mind, because White addressed this directly after Tuesday's practice, and her own words complicate the entire premise we opened with.
Layups. Aaliyah Boston, can you please make your layups? Monique Billings, can you please make your layups? Michaela Timpson, when you get in, can you please make your layups? Maisha Hines-Allen, please make your layups. Lexi Hall, please make your layups. Can everybody act professional and make their damn layups? Please. Caitlin Clark's only averaging like 8 assists. She should be averaging about 12, 13 assists if y'all could actually make some damn layups around here.
Now the part of Indiana's offense that has nothing to do with who's running it and everything to do with who's finishing it. Through 17 games this season, Indiana's franchise point guard is averaging 21 and 2 points, 8 and 2 assists, 3rd in the league in scoring, 2nd in assists, per the league's own numbers. Those assist totals get capped every single night by missed shots at the rim and wide-open catch-and-shoot threes off a drive and kick that clang out. Aaliyah Boston, Monique Billings, Michaela Timpson, all of them have had stretches this season of turning a good possession into a missed shot at the basket. It sounds small. It isn't. The difference between an assist column that reads 8 and one that reads 12 is finishing plays that are already created for you. Every professional in that locker room would tell you the same thing. Layups aren't the hard part of basketball. Missing them against a short-handed Sparks front line on national television is the kind of thing that shows up in film sessions on Thursday.
Don't let somebody get off on the offensive end that doesn't normally get off. I don't need to see Ray Burrell, who I think stinks, to be honest with you. We don't need to see Ray Burrell going off for 25 points. We don't need to see one of those no-name guards going off for 19, a career high, 4-4 from 3. Look, these no-name people, let's keep them as no-name people today.
Flip to the other end. short-handed teams still find one guy every single night. And for the Sparks, that's usually been Ray Burrell or Ariel Atkins catching fire off a switch nobody rotated to in time. Derica Hamby is the one Sparks big who can punish Indiana on the block if Boston or Billings get caught ball watching. Sparks head coach Lynn Roberts has said all season that losing a piece like Brink means it has to be all hands on deck up front. And tonight is exactly that kind of night for L.A. None of these three are walking into Crypto.com arena as household names outside Los Angeles. And that's exactly the danger. The box score humiliation that actually derails a supposed blowout almost never comes from the name you scouted for. It comes from the role player who gets hot in the second quarter because your defense relaxed against a team it was such a heavy favorite over. Indiana's scouting report tonight isn't complicated. It's discipline against a team with almost nothing left to lose.
Yet, okay? And the last thing is, who from the bench is going to join the party? Is it going to be a Maisha Hines-Allen game? Is it going to be another Sophie the Blonde Bomber game? Who from the bench is going to join the party? Is it going to be Raven Johnson? Who from the bench is going to join the party, step up, and contribute? Because I think the Indiana Fever bench is absolutely horrific, to be honest with you. No scoring punch outside of Sophie Cunningham. Somebody from the bench is going to have to step in and contribute.
Then there's Indiana's own bench, which has to answer a question regardless of who's running the starting lineup. Sophie Cunningham is back from the torn MCL that ended her season early last August, and she's exactly the instant offense catch-and-shoot presence this rotation needs off the pine. Maisha Hines-Allen gives White a different look up front. Michaela Timpson, in her second season, has flashed real touch in limited minutes. Rookie Raven Johnson brings a defensive gear most bench guards don't have yet. Somebody from that group needs to be a positive on the stat sheet tonight. Not because the starters need saving against an 8-11 Sparks team, but because Thursday's back-to-back in Phoenix means minutes matter. A cushion built by the bench in the third quarter is worth more to this team's health in August than it is on tonight's scoreboard.
I think the biggest thing is just continuing to learn what makes one another tick. How to motivate each other, how to challenge one another, how to lift one another up, how to pour into each other. Everybody's different. Everybody's a human and everybody's going through things. One thing I love about this group is that they're there for each other when they're going through some things, on and off the floor, and it's also for us to continue to build connectivity on it.
Here's where the premise we opened with actually gets tested. Not by anything that happens on the court tonight, but by what Stephanie White said out loud after Tuesday's practice. The last real look reporters got at this team before tip-off. Nobody asked her to weigh in on a Fever Twitter theory. She was asked a much simpler question. What has this group been learning about each other? And she didn't talk about schemes or who initiates the offense. She talked about players challenging each other, motivating each other, showing up for teammates who are going through something off the floor. She used the word connectivity more than once. That's not the answer of a coach trying to build a case that her team is better without its franchise player. It's the answer of a coach describing a locker room that's been leaning on each other precisely because its best player has been out. Those two things get treated like the same story online. They're not. A team can play well and grow closer during a two-game stretch without its star, and still want that star back the moment she's ready. The version of this narrative that gets clicks is the one where White's choosing sides. The version that's actually true, based on her own words this week, sounds a lot more like a coach managing an injury the same way every good coach does, cautiously, and without turning it into a referendum on anybody's system.
Each other. Yeah, I think our team is tight pretty much anyway. I think the biggest thing about our group is they seem to do a good job of staying in a bubble. I think that they seem to do a good job. Like, look, this is it is what it is. I think this is a group that fights for one another. I think this is a group that continues to challenge one another. I think that we've got a lot of players on this team who are willing to challenge each other too. So I think in all those ways, it's.
White kept going on that theme, calling this group tight, saying they'd done a good job staying in what she called their own bubble, insulated from outside noise. A group that challenges each other and fights for one another. Ask yourself honestly which sounds more consistent with everything else we know about this Fever locker room this season. A coach quietly building a case to keep her franchise cornerstone on a reduced role once she's healthy. Or a coach back for her second season leading this core, talking the same way she has all year about habits and connectivity, and taking things one day at a time. The second one matches what White has said in every press conference since training camp. The first one only really works if you ignore her actual words and lean entirely on a 2-game win streak. That doesn't mean the tension some fans are picking up on is completely made up. It's the same pattern as last October. A team that finds another gear without its star, and a coach who never once used that run to suggest the star wasn't needed going forward. Whether this year's version of that pattern survives contact with a fully healthy Clark back at the point, whether White blends both versions of this offense instead of picking one, that's a legitimate basketball question worth watching over the next month. And if Indiana meets Las Vegas again in October, the answer will matter a lot more than anything settled in July. It's just a different, more interesting question than the one Fever Twitter's been arguing about, which assumes White's already made a choice she's given zero public indication of making.
Caitlin said she hopes to play tomorrow, just kind of going through practice today. How optimistic are you of her being able to play?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's as long as she can go through practice and doesn't have any setbacks. I think we're all pretty optimistic with her progression and the way that she's gone. Every day's a new day, so we got to make sure that we are literally taking it one day at a time. But she'll go through practice today, and we'll evaluate.
Which gets us to the actual news sitting at the end of that same Tuesday practice. Stephanie White wasn't ready to hand out any guarantees. Every day's a new day, she said. We take it one at a time, and we'll evaluate after she goes through practice and see how she feels. That's coach speak for genuinely uncertain, not for hiding something. Caitlin Clark herself was more specific, talking to reporters afterward. Per Scott Agnes of Fieldhouse Files, Clark said she's feeling good and hopeful about being available against the Sparks, pending how her back responds to today's shoot-around. That's the entire story in one sentence. A guard averaging 21 and 2 points and 8 and 2 assists a night, who's watched her team win 2 straight without her, walking into tonight genuinely hopeful, not cleared, hopeful, to get back on the floor against a Sparks team that has no real answer for her when she's moving well. If she plays, tonight tells you almost nothing about whether Indiana is better without her, and everything about whether that back holds up for a full game for the first time in 2 weeks. If she doesn't, and Mitchell and Boston roll to a 3rd straight win in her absence, that Fever Twitter theory gets louder, whether Stephanie White ever puts her name on it or not. So here's the actual question worth sitting with before tip-off at 10 Eastern. If Indiana wins big again tonight with Clark on the bench, is that Stephanie White building something new? Or is it just a good team catching a short-handed opponent at the right time? Put your answer in the comments before the final score does it for you. And if you want the reaction the second this game ends, hit subscribe and get that bell turned on, because I'll be live 30 minutes before tip.